Hi, my name is Jo Wimble-Groves. I'm an entrepreneur and I'm also the writer of the blog Guilty Mother. With International Women's Day on the horizon, 8th of March, it seemed very relevant to have a room of inspiring women to help us celebrate success, share stories around running your own business and also around parenthood, because we're all mums and we're all juggling, but these ladies have been able to create themselves some amazing businesses. So it's with great pleasure that I can introduce you all today. So ladies, I'm just going to ask you to just say who you are and where you're from before we get started.
I'm Naomi Bloomstein and I'm one of the co-founders of Little Bird. I'm from here in London.
Welcome, yes, thank you.
I'm Sarah Whitaker and I'm the other co-founder of littlebird.co.uk and also live in London.
Perfect. Ladies.
Philippa Gibson, co-founder of Micro Scooters and live on the south coast.
Anna Gibson, co-founder of Micro Scooters and live in Northumberland.
Lovely. Well, welcome all of you. Thank you for coming in to see us today. Oh, brilliant. No, it's so great to be able to have you. I'm going to start with Little Bird. And I love the name and I love the brand to start with. And I've got a really lovely little story of how I heard about you actually. Because a friend of mine, we were going out for a day trip and she said, we're going to meet at this place where kids can run about, and I think people were dressing up in these costumes like an Alice in Wonderland type theme. And she said, before you come, you must go online and go on to Little Bird and get the discount code. And you know, mums, they just love a discount, don't we? So I hadn't heard of you until then, but I went on the website, got my 20% off, I think it was, turned up, and you just feel like I'm winning at life before I do And I thought, it was that moment that I thought, you know, people need to know about what you guys are doing, because you just wanted to be able to have, you know, affordable days out for families, for parents, and, you know, is that sort of where the idea stemmed from?
Absolutely, absolutely. We started Little Bird about 8 years ago now. And Sarah and I were friends from a long time ago, and we both had young families and were having quite full-time careers. I used to work in television and Sarah was a user experience designer in tech. So we had full-on careers, but had got young families and kind of wanted to take a pause. But knew that we kind of wanted to potentially potentially like the idea of running a business, but just kind of joked about it and, you know, talked about it. But then we got quite heavily involved in saving the local play centre, which was, in its usual way, was being threatened with closure due to budget cuts, and we got quite heavily involved in trying to save it, and we got local press involved and local MP, and we garnered the kind of local mums and families to really try and collectively save this playgroup, which was on Hampstead Heath.
We used to spend a lot of time there.
It was brilliant.
Yeah.
It was a real
Very
sanctuary.
passionate about things like this. Yeah.
We used to go there with friends, you know, all the time. It was much loved, and so we really got inspired by the idea that you know, women together could collectively do something as powerful. We got funding. We found out extra funding, and from that, kind of like the idea of maybe doing some kind of community-based website where people were working collectively together. So there was always this kind of drive behind it, I think, but we still weren't sure in what form.
And it was around that time actually that Groupon had come to the UK.
Sure.
And so it was kind of, at that point, it was still this idea of group buying and collective buying. And I remember having a look at the website and thinking, you know, I don't actually really want to buy any of the teeth whitening or any of that. But, you know, I do want to have this for families. This seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
You know, if we can offer discounts on days out and things to do.
Family life is more expensive than ever, isn't it? And you know, before you even go anywhere, as you say, you can spend £60, can't you? Before you're dating somewhere. And also, I think, you know, you can end up, certainly at the time, you know, 7-8 years ago, you ended up, there weren't as many websites to do what you could do. So you ended up kind of going to the same places over and over.
And I'll be going around in circles looking for these sort of discounts. And if you've got one place where you can find things.
We have no time, do we? And so the idea that you could get something into your inbox which had an idea and a saving, and ultimately, you know, made those kind of family moments affordable and those memories that you could, you know, have family days out that are really special, that are really lovely, and become more accessible. and they land in your inbox, and there they are with a saving and an idea.
Brilliant.
You know, it's a compelling
And I
idea.
think mums especially are so good at sharing. When you find something like that, it's exactly the same way that my friend shared it with me.
Totally.
You know, and I'm so pleased that she did, because I said, oh, I haven't heard of Little Bird. She went, oh no, before you go anywhere, you always have to have a look and see if they've got a discount.
Yeah.
No, I think it's
Yeah.
brilliant. And 8 years you've been running the business now. And what I love about all of you is that you're all friends as well. So thinking about, you know, saving this sort of this play area and stuff. And for you guys, you obviously met, didn't you, when you were your little ones, when you were sort of in the park, or was it the weighing clinic? I think we chatted about it. It was the weighing clinic, wasn't it? That we chatted about before. So how did that all come about?
Well, by chance, really. The whole scooter business. I mean, like lots of other mothers with young children in London, I was spending most of my time in the park, as was Philippa, going to playgrounds.
Just get them outside.
Yeah, exactly. Get them exercise. What are we going to do with them today? And my 18-month-old, I was out with my sister, and they discovered this scooter, and they got on the scooter and thought it was fantastic. And so we went to see if we could find one, bought one in a shop, and my son then just spent the next year on the common on the scooter, and it totally changed my life as a mother. You know, there was nothing else like it on the market. It gave him a sort of freedom and independence that he didn't otherwise have. You know, getting from A to B wasn't a nightmare anymore. It was really easy, and he absolutely loved it. And all the other mothers kept stopping me, saying, "Oh, where did you get that from? It's fantastic." So then I had another son and went to buy one for him, and they didn't sell them in the shop.
Right.
And so we found the distributor, the guy who was selling them. And when I spoke to him on the phone, I said, "Gosh, I could sell you loads of these. They are so fantastic." And he said, "Well, why don't you?" So I ordered some, put my sticker on the bottom with my phone number.
Yeah, I heard that. You put it on the back of the scooter
Yes.
almost.
Yeah, because I knew that every other mother would be stopped.
Yeah.
And, you know, as
I
I
get
had
that community feel coming back again.
Yeah.
When
Totally.
everybody
Yeah.
sees it and say, where did you get that from?
Yes, and so I was selling lots of them to other mothers and friends, and then the distributor disappeared off the face of the earth. So I contacted Micro in Switzerland, who are the manufacturers of the scooter, and they said, "Well, we're looking for a new UK distributor." And I was 2 children, number 3 on the way. I was like, "Oh, there's no way I'm doing that, but can I order some scooters?" And they said, "Okay, well, you can order a pallet of 64." And I was like, "Oh, where am I going to put those? You know, stuff them under the sofa and my husband's work." And so ordered the pallet of scooters, sold all of them within 2 weeks. Philippa and I were hanging around together. Two boys exactly the same age as my 2 eldest, and we were both passionate about the scooters. And you know, she'd seen how they were selling like hotcakes. So together I said, "Are you up for it? Because I'm not going to do this on my own."
Brilliant.
And we flew out to Switzerland and said to the manufacturer, we'll do it. You know, you have got the most fantastic product. And he could see that we had a real passion for the product. And it was because of that he gave us the distribution rights. So then we came back home and went, how are we going to do this? And so the journey
And
began.
I think that's one of the things that we're definitely going to touch on with both of you is, you know, once you have a great business idea and then you sort of commit to deciding that you want to bring it to life.
Yeah.
And then how do you start the business? How do you fundraise? And for any women out there who are thinking, I've got a great business idea, I might do it with a friend. Getting started is always the hardest bit. So you know, you've now got that problem, haven't you? Which is a great problem to have, where you've got everybody wants your product. And then, you know, how did you raise money for it? Did you have to go and pitch to say, look, we need an investor, or what stage did you get to?
I think we're incredibly lucky with that, because as Anna said, we started the business and knew that they were selling. You know, my son had one for a year alongside. You know, people were stopping us, they were asking us about them. We were at nursery, we knew that they would sell. You know, that was fantastic. And so, in fact, I think, I don't know, we both put some money. I think we both raised.
They borrowed and stole from, you know, family and friends, but it was a small investment in it. We were buying scooters by the truckload.
You didn't need an office then, I suppose.
No,
working from home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I assume you do as well. Do you work from home, or do you have an office? How's that grown over the years?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think businesses, don't they, at the beginning have very different challenges, and actually ours again wasn't as getting the funding wasn't actually the problem. I think it was very of the moment. So we went and pitched the idea, And the Big Ideas Group who invested in us, we were able to use their office space in Farringdon and be able to plug into their infrastructure for HR and legal. But I mean, still we had no business experience. You know, we were starting with a blank page, and I think that's kind of
Same for us, yeah.
terrifying, isn't it? Because you have to set up those processes from the beginning, merchant agreements and payment gateways and all of these things.
Well, I think it's terrifying, as you say, but it's also, I think it's what gave us our USP, if you like, because you come at it totally fresh and you question everything.
Yes.
Do you remember? We used to do pages and pages and well, how's the profit margin?
Yes, absolutely.
We're not going to be busy fools, you know, we're not going to not make any money, but that doesn't seem right. And we would play around with it and we bucked an industry standard at the time, which was as a distributor, you definitely sold to the retailer, and we established one of the really early payment gateway websites. It was so hard to do in those days.
Yes, it was.
You know, to find a payment gateway in 2004 didn't really exist. And so it was early days of doing that. But that gave us what is still the model for our business today. So it was really, I think it's really good, I think it's really healthy. Also think there is a real similarity in that we're all knocking around with a lot of business experience. But you've actually got time when you've got little children to reflect, and I think that is when an entrepreneurial spirit comes out.
Definitely, I think it's very interesting. The whole, you know, when you have young children. When we started, we had very young children. I remember decision making had to be very quick because you had a lack of time. So I remember us discussing. I know you talked about the logo. With us deciding on the logo, whether it was one bird or two birds, and how we were spelling little bird between the drop off of nursery and the drop off to school, and going. We had I think we just had a deadline. It was like, two, you know, and it just, you're just having to make decisions with your gut because you just are in it, aren't you? You're right there and in it.
And doesn't parenting, even when they're young or at any age, really, doesn't it make you just super efficient? You know, you just come in and you just want to get the job done, don't you? And I find that at work. You know, you can tell who the parents are and who the mums are. They come in and no time to talk, Joe. I'm just going to, and they're absolutely, you know, military. You want to get stuff done, and they just work so hard. Because you sort of your time management just pretty impressive.
We made lots of our decisions on Clapham Common.
Right.
You know, with the children running around.
That's brilliant.
I remember meeting our shipping agent whilst we were feeding all of our children their lunch, you know, and he was sitting there expecting to be in some, amazing room, and we were in our kitchen, you know, with 6 children.
That's great. Brilliant. Love that.
Yeah.
And I imagine both of you have used social media quite a lot in order to, you know, how do you build your brand? How do you grow your name? And, you know, obviously social media's not been around that long, really, I suppose. So, I mean, for you guys, obviously being an online business, how did you grow Little Bird to become its own brand?
So, I mean, growth for us has always been a challenge. You know, we've never had huge marketing budgets. So, in the first few years, we did grow it through social media, you know, through Facebook, through Twitter, through the more organic side of social media as well, you know, through the Facebook groups. That proved very successful for us. Through events, we went to a lot of events, and obviously we did have the children with us then. They were quite young, so we could get away with dragging them, you know, to a local fair and setting up an arts and crafts stall. And
it's timing, isn't it? Just, you know, there's networking where, but that is the best word of mouth.
It was brilliant for us, and we had a partnership with Lollipop at that time, so we were there for quite a few years. And then also partnerships, and obviously this brilliant partnership that was set up with Microscooter, which is I think 5 years ago now. That's been fantastic for us.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And the same for you, ladies, I suppose. You've got such, you know, Microscooters, everybody knows the brand, and that makes it a lot easier now. But I'm assuming that's been over a long time, isn't it, where that's really grown very organically. But do you use social media a lot, really, to
Well, in the early days, there wasn't so much social media. 2004, 2005, there really wasn't. But I think we had that same sort of, exactly like you guys. We were doing the fairs, weren't we? And it was word of mouth on the street. You know, you see a scooter, you ask somebody where that's from.
Totally.
It's a total, so that then migrated very easily and organically.
And I think
to
exactly
social
so.
media.
Women are very good, aren't they, at sharing and doing that kind of the viral sharing collective at the school gate. in the parks, telling each other. You go out on a day out with your friends, you go collectively. And I think, we really benefited in the same way from people just, we talk about the fact that at the beginning we were built by word of mouth, very much. We didn't have a marketing.
And
budget,
mother
really.
to mother marketing is extremely
huge
and valuable.
Absolutely.
I think we're real natural
collaborators.
Exactly.
And mothers know when there's something good out there, and they will talk about it.
Yeah, definitely.
And as Philippa says, there wasn't much social media when we started, so it was very much relying on mothers talking to mothers. And obviously we were lucky as well in that the product was out there, so you could see it. It wasn't stuck in the toy room or the classroom or something. You always saw the children on the scooter.
I remember the first time I saw one, and I stopped a mum.
Yes,
I stopped a mum and said, "Where is that?"
Where did you get it from?
There was a sticker on the
Oh,
bottom.
really?
Seriously, so it must have been years ago.
With Anna's
16.
telephone number.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
So it was, that product sold.
Yes.
It was brilliant. Brilliant for you.
What's been one of the sort of biggest challenges that you've had over these sort of last 8 years? What do you think? Because I suppose, like you said, there's always going to be competition. You mentioned about Groupon. You can go on and try and find a discount. I think it's harder for me as a consumer to try and navigate my way to find that discount. But what's been the biggest sort of challenge?
I think we're quite a tech-heavy business, and because we are. I mean, we used to, when we first started, have like a deal a day, and the deal would basically, we built the website, so the deal would stay up for 24 hours, and then it would go down. And we quickly realised, I think probably after a few weeks, this is like utterly ridiculous. It's like we've done all of this work, and there it is, and now it's gone. Yeah. So kind of that was probably the first time that we then started to adapt the website, and that actually just continues and continues. So I think, development and tech is definitely a challenge. Yeah.
And you're manually sort of putting these deals up every day, so just constantly online what's going to be the next deal. So.
Exactly. I think new content, we have now a deal a day or multiple deals, and so there's new content. It's on 365 days a year. It's fresh content all the time. So I think providing that, responding to that is labour intensive. I think that's definitely a challenge.
And you mentioned you've got a partnership with Microscooters. So sort of tell me a little bit about this partnership that you have.
Yeah, I think it started a few years ago with Joe and Danny. I think we did competitions together and worked where we were doing crossover, channels in terms of user acquisition, which worked really well, I think. And
great.
So I think it's grown over the last few years.
Brilliant. Yeah. So I think a really important topic that we should talk about is confidence. So there's a lot of women out there who might be wanting to start their own business, and actually sometimes just taking the first step, isn't it, is the hardest bit of how do you actually think, I'm just going to launch our business. So do you remember, I'm going to pose this to you ladies first, do you remember quite clearly when you went, do you know what, we're just going to go for it? Some people might have quitted their job to go for it. Can you relate to that?
Yes, I mean, absolutely. I remember the moment very distinctly when Sarah was telling me about the idea, and I just kind of went, I just know that that's a great idea. I know that that's the one, because we could kind of toy with different things. And I remember driving over the top of Hampstead and going, damn, that's it, And I think for us, actually, going from that point to going live with the site, it actually only took 6 months. It was very, very quick. We took it step by step. We put together a presentation. We went to see a few people, and before we knew it, it was, and I think we were very lucky. I really do. I think we were very lucky. But I think the biggest thing is, I remember somebody saying to me, you're not going to have a perfect website. You've got to just launch and iterate as you go. You've just got to go for it. And I think just going for it and taking the step, whether you fail or don't, is the main thing. Just actually just taking action, isn't it? It's taking action.
Yeah, and I think it just gets its, it gets its own momentum. So, it is hard to take that first step, but once you do, then it starts to roll, and, you just have to kind of follow through with it. So.
And Philippa, remind me of your background. Before you got asked to come into the business, what was your background?
My background, I was fundraising, actually. I was fundraising at
Working in the city?
No, St Mary's Hospital, building a children's A&E, fundraising for that. I was the field director. But yeah, that was very difficult, because that was actually the first job I did with children. So I had my daughter, who was, maternity leave in those days was so 20 weeks. So I went back to work, into this big new job when she was 20 weeks. And when I think about the inflexibility of the NHS,
How did you manage that juggle?
difficult. And I would say that more than it was probably a lot of it was the inspiration for hooking up with Anna and thinking, right, I've had enough of that.
I could work around
And now I've
my
got 2
children.
boys as well. There's no way I'm going back to that inflexible job. So that was a lot of the inspiration behind.
And I think, so the flexibility, like you say, even back then, you were craving
Massively
it.
important. We both
can't
knew
do
that we
can't
wanted
do
to
that.
be essentially stay-at-home mums. But I think we both shared this huge urge to do a little bit more. If I'm really, really, really honest, I was a bit overfaced by the everyday of being a mum. I still find it challenging, and it is daunting when you know that you've got to make supper every night and you're doing bath time every night and you might have been in an exciting job and had a bit more life going on. And I think you do have a drive to output that creativity and that can do. And I think it's amazing. That's certainly that was my driver, that I wanted to do something that fitted.
Totally
I think it's
with
exactly
being
the
a
same.
mother. I think it's exactly the same, and I think we both, I was saying at the beginning, I think we both felt going back to our careers before, it just was incompatible with family life. It just wasn't possible.
Yeah.
But yet also totally agree, we wanted to do something. We kind of were juggling with the idea of doing something, wanting to, as you say, have some kind of creative outlet, knowing that you've got something to give, but wanting the flexibility. I think I look back now and I think I was naive about what flexibility was going to give me. Because it's like a bottomless pit of things that you have to do.
But you can do it in your own time.
Well, you can do it in your own
Your
time.
own
So
space,
we wanted to do drop off and pick up. We wanted to go to assemblies. We wanted to do all of those things, and we've always maintained that. But that then means there's losses and gains, isn't it? So that then means you're working in the evenings, you're working at the weekends. It is endless in terms of what you have to do.
And I think I do have what we had, which I always think we never judged each other for going,
Totally.
sorry, gotta go.
You understand.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I think when you're thinking about creativity, I was just thinking about, when you become a mother, obviously it changes you. You become so overwhelmed by this child that you've had and all the love that it requires, and all the attention that it requires. But actually, do you think, finding our own sense of self or refinding our own sense of self, is that you're still Philippa, you're still your own person, and I think a lot of women struggle a little bit, don't they, just to refine their
I think
own
that's
sense
true,
of
and
self.
I think it's a perfect name, guilty mother. You're permanently feeling guilty, you're not doing your job well enough, you're not being a good enough mum, you're not spending enough time with your friends. That's always going on. But in terms of setting up a business, you are able to juggle all those things. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it horribly wrong, but at least it gives you that flexibility that means hopefully you can do, both. And all I would say to anybody wanting to set up is, we just need to be kinder to ourselves.
I was going to say.
And celebrate the small things, celebrate the successes, because as soon as that happens, you're so busy moving on to the next thing and worrying about the next thing you've got to do that actually we all need to be sort of kinder to ourselves, and we're lucky that we can. It is possible to do it, especially with modern technology. When we started, we just had a dial-up computer in the corridor. We just had a brick of a phone. We didn't even have our emails with us. So
I think celebrating milestones is really important, and I think that's something we should encourage, whether it's in motherhood or in business, isn't it?
And I totally agree, you don't. I think we acknowledge that we're very, very bad at doing that, because you're so on to the next thing, so on to the next goal or the next, and you don't actually celebrate. And when you do look back, you realise how much you've achieved. You realise how far you've come. And it's so important to do that. I think, also we are our own worst critic, aren't we? So you can constantly feel like you're doing every job slightly badly.
Yes.
Everyone not well enough, and you give yourself a very hard time about that. But actually, as I say, look at all that you are achieving.
All the good stuff.
And you're not going to get it right all the time. Just not.
And I think it's difficult, isn't it, with social media? We set ourselves up for these perfect Instagram images and perfect parenting. It's not realistic, isn't it? So for everybody out there with who has children, we know that we're all muddling through, and I'm sure feel like I'm dropping balls all the time.
Totally.
You know, forgetting something at school, or like you say, rushing from a meeting to try and get to that assembly.
Yeah. I remember rushing to a meeting when actually I think my son was really little, and I think the lady that I was meeting had been running her business for a while, and we hadn't been going that long, and I had baby sick down my top. It was just like, oh God.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so there's no such thing as perfect.
No,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
There was a paper, an article in the paper actually this morning talking about flexible working hours, and I think it's more and more becoming the norm, and we've certainly embraced it as a business. You know, we've got quite a few part-time workers, and we do flexible hours. So again, you know, it's that family work-life balance. You know, we want all of our employees to have that.
Yeah.
Totally.
So they don't miss the school assembly, they don't miss the school play, they can go to school pick-up. And I just think it makes for happier people, and everyone works harder because they know they've got that option, and I think it's the way forward.
Well, it's learning to get, you know, that ties your employees into a sort of, you know, what is our output? What do we want of you? As long as you're doing X, Y, and Z and achieving X, Y, and Z.
I think there's no reason
really
why you
mind how you
can't.
do it.
Exactly, I don't mind how you do it.
Yeah.
I think, you know, being a business that encourages you to be able to have that work-life balance and knows that those important moments are important and valuable, and those are the things actually that really matter, aren't they? And so I think as a business you can totally be as forward, flexible as you can be.
It is a more progressive way of thinking, and hopefully, you know, that we're moving towards that more.
Definitely, it's in the newspaper, as you say, all the time. And although it's thinking about International Women's Day, we should also talk about the dads. I think in business, you know, having a supportive partner behind you. You know, I know for me personally, you know, my husband is really supportive. And I think, you know, that's really important. And actually in work, I've noticed, especially in our company that I run with my brother, the tech company, we've got so many dads that want flexibility as well. And actually, why should they miss out on the kids' sports day, or you know? I think, you know, these sort of Christmas carol shows and what have you. A couple of guys have, I said, go. I said, look, just work from home for the office. And you know what? The funny thing is, they have come back. They come back and say, I told you not to come back. Well, I had a bit of but actually, that's the respect and the trust, isn't it? But I think, you know, it's not fair for parents, men and women, to miss out on those moments.
Totally, and I think, you know, just even anecdotally over the years, you know, 8 years ago, so many more men, we see so many more dads buying days out and being the ones to organise and contribute and you know, decide to take their kids out. And I think that's very reflective of how things have moved on. There is no reason that it's just left up to mums. I don't want us to be kind of exclusive, you know, just for mums, by mums. It's not that anymore. I don't think it is that anymore, and I don't think we should present that. I think it is families. My partner does as much as I do. He really does. You know, it's not just all on me, and I think that is a whole movement towards
it's
that.
a real shift, isn't it, that we've seen, I think, over the years. You know, from when I was a child, I remember my dad didn't come to watch any of me sports things or anything because he was always at work.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I know that, you know, my husband wouldn't want that. He wants to try and be present as much as he can in the kids' lives. It feels like proper teamwork, especially for you guys all running your own businesses. You need that strength of teamwork and collaboration.
I think there's another generation. I think our parents are more in touch with the internet. They're more in touch with our children. They also research things online.
Totally, grandmothers,
you know, grandfathers.
Huge portion.
It was a big sort of, you know, it's a big wake-up call for us that actually we're not that far apart from it. You know, each generation is more involved with the other. I certainly couldn't have done it without my parents, without their support. They had my boys
That's amazing.
They said when I moved out of London, we will look after your boys once a week after school. And they had them, and they went to watch their sport, and I couldn't have done the meetings up here in town without them.
And how do you juggle? So what days are you sort of in the office, and how do you like to do the pickups and the drop-offs? And I think that's important as well, isn't it, for you to? Otherwise, you feel so disconnected, don't you, from the school? It's really hard.
And I think, you know, over the years, I really found that it was just hugely important for me, balance-wise, just to be able to have that time to pick up. If I don't, I can feel quite disconnected quite easily. I just, you know, it grounds me. It's what, you know.
What you're doing it for.
Yeah, it's what's important. So
I think it also gives you perspective,
yeah,
doesn't it? I think
exactly
some
absolutely
people, you know, I just used to think, oh my gosh, I haven't got time to go to that coffee morning, or I haven't got time to, you know, pick up and talk to somebody.
Right?
And it's okay to say no, but
Without
also,
feeling guilty.
also, you don't get over-involved in their lives, and I think that is really good too. I really, you know, I'm hand on heart here, but it certainly helped me negotiate those early years of parenthood because you don't have time to worry too much, you know, and it just gives you perspective. You're coming into a different world with different people, different ages, and it gives you perspective. And sometimes I think if you're all parenting together, as supportive and as wonderful as that is, and I'm not knocking that, you can all get over-involved. I'm being really honest.
Yeah, no, totally agree.
And one of the things we talked about earlier, which I thought was a really good word, as we're talking about microscooter, balance. You brought up the subject of balance. So, a question for you, really, Anna. How do you find balance, especially as the business has grown so much? How do you find time to wind down?
Well, I think it was, as we all know, it was very, very difficult in the early days. But now I suppose it's easier in that we've got a really great team behind us, and I think that helps. Managing the growth was very difficult, but you know we had that shared. We shared the fact that families were important, so we always put that behind us. But so I suppose we didn't really give ourselves any time out, so the balance was not great. But the balance is much better now.
Yes.
And I think that's because the business is established. It's continuing to grow. But we've got a great team in place who help us manage that growth much better. But, you know, as fast as we were growing last time, we never got enough. We only then realised that we needed somebody else to help us. By the time we got them, they were completely involved in the business. We probably should have got them 6 months earlier. So, it's much easier to manage that balance now. Much easier.
Like you say, good team around you.
Yes.
And you're thinking about balance, I was thinking about self-care, because obviously being in technology myself, we know that sort of work life and home life becomes very blurred, doesn't it? So have you got a few thoughts on how you disconnect sometimes when you have an online business, so you feel like you need to be online all the time?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's changing your mindset. I think there is kind of at the beginning, you want to kind of always be looking at, your emails and always checking everything and kind of, feeling like you need to. But I think over time, you learn that, it's not going to be a disaster if I don't look at my emails for 3 hours or 4 hours.
It's self-discipline sometimes.
Exactly. And actually, you need to give yourself that space, because if you don't give yourself that space, you're actually less productive than you would be otherwise.
Yeah.
So,
I think I was really bad at it at the beginning. I kind of had an open computer policy. It was just, it's just there, and you're like that, very constant energy sucking thing. But I think over time, Sarah says, you have to get more disciplined. And now I do have time where it's just clearly divided, where it's that goes away, and now my focus is on here, because I think we all feel when we don't do that, and the kids are like, Mom.
Yes. I always felt in the early days, I was there, mentally I wasn't, because my head was in the latest email that came in.
Yeah, totally. But that's not to say, it's not still like that, I feel, sometimes for us. And even last week I was, working a lot at the kitchen table, and my daughter was at home and she was sick, and she said, Mum, you're on the computer the whole time.
And it's hard to explain to them, isn't it? And I don't know that we've set a particularly good example to our children, because we were doing it out and about, and as you get the iPhone, you're on your iPhone answering emails, then of course our children are on their iPhones, like, get off your phone.
I know.
And you're thinking, well, actually, that's how we've.
I totally agree with that.
So then we have to explain to them, actually, we're running a business, and that's how it's enabled us to be there with you. But at the same time, there are emails that have to be answered, which in a way I think is good for them, because then they realise that actually, it's not all about them, and you're working.
I look back at Georgia, my eldest, who is probably one of the elder children here, 23, and she definitely resented it in the early days. She must have been about 7, 8 when we set it up, and she definitely resented it for those first years. But I think it's come full circle,
Yes.
and actually she's very proud of it.
With your eldest daughter, and you mentioned obviously, you're trying to run a business from your phone pretty much when we're out and about, but your daughter sometimes maybe would be frustrated because you're not giving her the attention because we're on a phone, and we're all guilty of that.
Interestingly, phones weren't as big a thing when we started the business, when she was small. But she was probably about 7 or 8, and she had these 2 little brothers that were born incredibly close together, same age as Anna's eldest. And she felt it. She felt them coming along into her life probably, and she definitely felt their micro scooters coming along into her life. And
Like a snowball.
it was like a snowball effect, poor thing. And she definitely resented it in those early years. And I would do a lot of soul searching about whether it was fair, whether it was right, probably trying to appease her a bit by having too many tea parties for her or whatever it was. And, we found all the footage the other day and looked back on it.
Do you chat to her about it now?
Yeah, we do. And suddenly it flipped, probably around the age of 16, 17, when she was thinking about A-level choices, career choices, and she suddenly realised that her friends knew our business and were impressed, and it suddenly did this huge somersault. That's the only way I can describe it.
Oh, that's lovely.
And even to this day, she's in the world of work, in the early days of the world of work, post-degree, and I think it is totally different because I've been in the world of work and I have some experience, not hugely of the world she wants to go into, but you can talk on I think she appreciates it now. Yeah. It gives you a parenting connection that, possibly we wouldn't have otherwise.
And for you as well, Anna, do your kids have they ever come round to you and said, Mum, we're so proud of you, we're so impressed by what you've done?
Not in so many words. There are 3 boys.
I was going to say, I think boys don't maybe do it as much, do they?
But we did. My husband now works in the business as well, and we gave a talk to their school. And I remember it was to the 6th form, and the boys had only just started at the school. When we told them we were giving the talk about microscooters, they went, "Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? But it's in front of all of the 6th form." They were terrified that we were going to really embarrass them. And then they said to my husband, "What are you going to wear?"
Yeah.
They were really concerned about it. And then actually the talk was really well received, and they suddenly got a whole load of kudos from these older boys who they were, slightly in awe of, and they came out with their smiles on their faces, just saying, "It was really good," And I think that was a real turning point for them to realise that actually it's quite a cool business, and our children have always been really involved in it, in the market research and all the photo shoots. So inherently, they know quite a lot about it. Yes, but in terms of realising how we got to where we got to, I think is quite a lot for them to take on. I think as they get older, they'll realise what it took or what it's become or what it was, and that they were very much part of it. So,
and we talk about entrepreneurial spirit. So is that something that, like you say, for your own children, they're seeing you, their mum out doing their thing, running their own business, creating your own world, and that our children might want to do that. Do you feel that? Do they ever turn around and say, "You're pretty cool, Mum"?
That's all like
quite cool.
But I think they are very proud. I think, for my boys, they've, as you say, they've grown up with it. My youngest was 3 and my eldest was 8, and so they've grown up with it, and they've had some lovely benefits. We've gone on lovely days out, and I think they feel very proud when they see people with their Little Bird tickets, or if we say, "Oh, we're Little Bird," and we come in, and I think they're very proud of that when they see it in action. I think when you see it in action, it's visible, it's there, and they can kind of gauge it there. And I think that there is. I hope that you are passing something on that says you can do this. We started from here and we got here, and anyone can do that. And I think that, I hope that in amongst all of the "Mum, and telling people off," whatever it is, that there is a message that is being put across, subliminally, You know, that they're absorbing that kind of ethos, which is I can do
Passing
this.
it on
Yeah.
as well. I really like that.
I
I
hope
think
so.
that's really important that we do pass on what we've learned. And even when we sit around today, we think, do people want to hear our story? They do.
Yeah.
They want to hear from you, ladies. They want to hear how you did it, where you are now, and that it's possible.
Yes.
And that's what we want to tell our children, that,
Yeah.
that anything is possible if you work hard
Yeah.
and believe in it. They can achieve.
And sometimes it's not the things that you say, actually, it's the actions that you're doing,
Yeah.
isn't it? It's not, they're absorbing it on a daily basis, all that you're doing, and that you've got an ethos, or that you're trying to, run a business fairly, or
Yeah.
you're, whatever it is ethically, and, so I hope that is being, channeled and
Yeah.
absorbed in every way,
Sure
rather
it
than
is.
even just words.
And then a few final thoughts, really. We talk about balance, we talked about confidence, we talked about motherhood, talked about business, finding entrepreneurial spirit. But one of the things that you touched on earlier was this self-care. And I think for anyone watching this video, what would be a good piece of advice that you would like to give that somebody might want to hear today? So what would you...
Well, I think
Words of
if you're thinking about setting up your own business, I suppose the first thing I would say is you've got to really believe in what it is you're doing and be passionate about it. And if there's an integrity and a passion there, then you'll be able to take other people on the journey with you. But don't expect to know everything. We certainly didn't. I was a lawyer, Philippa was a fundraiser, so we didn't know where to start. But there are plenty of people out there who can answer your questions. Ask as many questions as you possibly can, and don't settle unless you get the answer that makes sense. And look at the competition, make sure you sort out your pricing, but don't be overwhelmed by it all, and look after yourself, It's too easy to become overwhelmed and give up, but it's very exciting, and you just got to tick it off one by one, all those things you've got to do.
I would totally agree with that. I mean, someone once described to me a startup or running a business as the valleys of death and the hills of happiness. And I thought that was a brilliant kind of description of the first few years, because it's very up and down, but it does get easier. And I think that it's good to just be aware that it's a journey and keep that in mind, even when you're at your lowest or highest points.
Yeah. What advice would you give then on that note? What do you think? I think life is definitely all about that journey and that business journey. What advice would you give to somebody around being a mother and maybe trying to run their own business?
I would say just go for it.
Yeah.
First of all, I
Great
think
advice.
you don't want to have the regret of not going for it. Be prepared for it to be hard, because it is hard. But it's also great, and you're you are in charge of your own time, and there are lots of benefits.
Brilliant.
So,
What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be around the kind of not giving up. I think you can very easily feel like it has to be perfect, and that you've got to achieve so much. And I think when things don't go according to plan, and they just won't. It's about carrying on regardless, and picking yourself up and keeping on going. And I think that kind of idea of you're doing the very best that you can. That you're doing the best that you can, and you're learning along the way.
That resilience, it's so
It's
important.
so
Something
important.
that we talk about, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think it's a bit more than that. What it certainly is for me, and it's that resilience. I can feel it some days, and I don't feel it other days.
Absolutely.
And you know what? My biggest piece of advice is it's okay when you don't feel it. You don't have to do it when you don't feel it. Just trust that you will feel it again,
Yes.
and then you can do it then.
Brilliant.
Don't beat yourself up
Yeah.
for not being entrepreneurial every minute of the day.
Absolutely.
No one is.
No.
yeah.
I totally agree. That's the kind of thing, isn't it? Is that you're going to have those days where you want to give up, and then you don't want to get out of bed, and it all just feels too much.
Yeah.
And that's okay. As you say, that does pass. It does pass, and then you get yourself up again, and you carry on.
And trust your energy, trust your
Yeah.
passion. It will be there. Well, if it's really there, it's going to come back.
And on that final note, I think risk of burnout is really important.
Yes,
I was going to say,
yeah.
How do you know when you're tipping over because you think, I have to keep going, and then you're at risk of burnout? Self-care, coming back to what you were saying earlier, and is really important. So I'm sure all of you have something that you like to do for a little bit of self-care, something that's a little bit self-indulgent, because it is not selfish to have a bit of self-care, and don't feel guilty about it.
Yeah, I think
So,
you've got to, yeah.
What is your guilty pleasure for self-care? What do you all like to do? go to the spa for a day, to go for a walk.
I'm not sure it's guilty pleasure, but it's going for a walk.
I
I
was
think it's
on your own.
brilliant.
Yeah.
You know, on your own.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
No children in tow.
Yes. Because
Yeah.
I think what you said earlier about perspective is so important. Really, it's just and whatever it is that can give you that time out to give you the perspective of, you know, there is more to life. This is there's a whole picture here. You know, it's not just this. It's not all this all-consuming moment. And I think that's whether that's watching a box set, going for a walk. You know, I do find going for a walk absolutely right.
really
It just
clears
is
your head,
that,
doesn't
you know,
it?
being by the sea, being by the water, something that just makes you think it's okay. There's a bigger picture here.
Or
So you live by the
coast.
coast?
Oh, no, I do live by the coast, but actually, funny enough, for me, it's been really lazy and just reading a book. Probably, I find that a real guilty pleasure. But I love it. You know, that's what I did at
Love
university,
picking up
and
the
I love
paperback.
picking up. You know, I remember I've got a really nice hardback.
Lovely.
Colvins,
Oh, lovely.
in extremis, but I think just to put yourself in another world
Yes, exactly.
is such relief.
Yeah.
I think, well, I've got 3 boys who all play a lot of sport, and it would be so easy just not to go and watch the matches because, of course, there's another thing to do. But I think it's really important as parents, because you're not going to be able to do that forever, whether it's watching them doing their ballet or in matches or anything, any pastime that your children does. I think it's really important to take the time out to enjoy it. I mean, obviously there's stuff I love doing myself as well, whether it's a walk on the beach or a swim or I quite like sailing as well. So yeah, any of those things.
Yeah, well, I would concur with all of those. I think
Yeah.
they're all brilliant.
And a large glass of wine.
And
Oh, yes.
What a great way to finish.
Talking about it.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. Thank you very much to Naomi, to Sarah, to Philippa, to Anna for joining us for this really inspiring talk. So thank you very much, and we hope to have another talk for you very soon.